You disgust me.
Hello, and welcome to the Cowcast No Man's Land Saga of the Clone Saga.
I don't like you co-opting your show's name for this. Because this is going to dwarf your show.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Is there anything else to say?
Do we have a sponsor?
Does this show have
I'm
sponsors?
Matt.
I'm Billy.
I'm Damone.
Our sponsor this week is the film Sideways, starring Paul Giamatti as the Rhino.
Is it better than the DC comic book Sideways?
Is it better than
Yes.
this podcast?
Probably, but I also haven't watched it yet. It's been sitting on my couch for about 3 months, and I'll eventually put it in.
You haven't watched the movie or the podcast?
Both.
What do we do on this podcast?
What do we do? Well, we bullshit for 10 minutes, and then we talk about Batman No Man's Land.
Yep. So now, this is our first episode. We're not going to talk a ton about actual comics. It's kind of our jump start.
Exactly about one issue.
Yes, one issue. And that's how it worked out. And so we're also going to use this as kind of the intro episode. No Man's Land is like a 1999 to 2000 giant arc in the Batman titles, but it's really part of an even bigger arc. And it's widely acclaimed, interesting creators involved, et cetera, et cetera. It's also huge, comparable to our Spider-Man Clone Saga podcast.
Not really as long, though.
We'll start out by what do you guys think about Batman? What's your history with Batman, et cetera? Who wants to go first?
Mike does.
All right, I'll go first. So, Batman's my favorite superhero, so that means I'm lame because I don't have anything original about me. But I think I definitely know as a kid that my brother let me watch the 89 movie at way too young of an age, where it got to a point where I would cry if he didn't put it on when he was supposed to be babysitting me. And also, if I missed Batman the Animated Series at 4 o'clock in the afternoons coming home from school, I'd also throw a fit. But so Batman's my favorite, and definitely is the character that I own the majority of comics of. But I've never read No Man's Land. I have fully acquired it in like all 7 books that it takes, and this is my second read through of Cataclysm. I haven't gone beyond that yet, but I am excited to see how this stacks up. Of if it is as good as everyone says it is.
Okay, I'll go next. I am aware of Batman. Batman is a character from the DC universe. I've read like maybe 3 Batman stories. So I'm really getting into some stuff that I don't know what's going on. You know what? I don't know what's going on. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. I was on the Cowcast with Mike and another.
That show still exists.
It's on hiatus right now because we're working to make enjoyable content for all of you people.
Since when have we ever done that?
You're right.
When did we have people?
Okay.
Hey, I think the weekly comics review show with Vince is enjoyable. You get to hear us talk about joint pain and comic books.
My 2 favorite things.
I've never talked about joint pain.
You guys are so old.
We both talked about joint pain, like the 3rd episode.
I don't remember this. Go ahead.
But anyways, my I guess experience with Batman has been I watched the TV shows and I've read the comics. Some of them. Yeah, I've read some of the comics. My knowledge base is maybe slightly above average, probably around average.
Oh wow, big brain.
Big brain, yeah, galaxy brain, that's right.
Surprisingly, Damone has never seen a Batman movie.
Never, not one. Mm-hmm.
But what about 2?
I saw 3 actually.
Yeah, see, I got it. I know your tricks. Well, I guess that leads to me. I like Batman. I have more than a few Batman collectibles. I don't know how well you can see these. My introduction to Batman was actually these beautiful movies right here.
I feel like
You,
it's a lot of people's introduction to Batman.
Yeah.
That or the animated series.
you got Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin. And Batman and Robin was my favorite as a kid because I have a strange affinity for Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
See, here's the thing. I'm going to agree with you because there was a point where I was scared of 89 and Returns. So I watched Batman Forever and Batman and Robin a lot, along with Sub-Zero, the animated movie.
I've never seen that. But yeah, I wouldn't say I know a lot about Batman. I don't know. I read some Batman. I watched a lot of Batman. I've watched almost. I think I've watched every live action Batman movie that they've released, and then I've tried to keep up with the animated ones, but some of them are just straight garbage. So,
Have you watched the 1940 serial?
yes.
Why would you
Actually,
watch cereal? You could just
I-
eat it.
I fucking hate
Well,
you. No, but I had a VHS of the serial. So yeah, I did. But yeah, I like Batman. He's cool. Much better than Peter Parker.
That's not hard though.
that's
It's
just wrong, but
It's
fine.
not.
All right.
think-
I like Batman. He's all right. I think he's the most overrated superhero with the most overrated villains. I think DC. If Batman didn't exist, DC would be crying in the dumpster somewhere because they would be really screwed.
But they have the
also
world's
Green
greatest superhero,
Lantern.
Superman.
Don't you mean Shazam?
My boy.
So, No Man's Land. I've never read this in full, and I'm going to quickly show. This is what we're going to be reading. So we have Batman Cataclysm. Then we have Road to No Man's Land. Let me see it. I'm holding these kind of backwards. Road to No Man's Land, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And then we're going to get through 4 volumes of No Man's Land.
That's a lot of no man's land.
And on the back of this, we got a nice homage to the other huge Batman crossover of the 90s, Nightfall. And so altogether, this is what we're going to read, which is still a lot shorter than the Clone Saga.
Thank God.
But
The Saga
it
of
should
the
be
Clone
fun.
So
And also differing from the Clone Saga, we're not diving that deep into stuff afterwards because I don't know why. Maybe I'm just blanking, or I'm not quite as neurotically possessed by this topic. But the No Man's Land concept doesn't stretch. It doesn't come back over and over and over again. It doesn't stretch further to this day. But we're gonna
with like No Man's Land coming back, or is like if they visit an old part of Gotham and it's like, oh yeah, this part wasn't rebuilt after the earthquake in No Man's Land.
Yeah.
That's all you get.
So we're gonna dip just a tiny bit into the Batman stuff immediately following No Man's Land, which is mostly the New Gotham era by Greg Rucka, and we'll also dip a tiny bit into solo Cass Kane Batgirl stuff, and also touch a little bit of Gotham Central, which is directly relevant, and some very obscure tie-in issues, and that's really it as far as post No Man's Land.
I think I want to branching off what Vince just said. We will be checking out Cassandra Cain Batgirl. She makes her debut in this, but other notable, I guess, continuity snippets that show up. Harley Quinn will make her main DC continuity appearance in No Man's Land. I believe in the No Man's Land, like the one shot with it has the Alex Ross cover. That's she makes her first appearance there. But also they timeline this where they say Batman has been around for 10 years time during No Man's Land. So he's been active in Gotham City for 10 years at this point.
All right, so we're going to jump right in. This first episode, this first issue, The Sound and Fury. This is Detective Comics number 719. And just recently, relatively recently, 1000 came out, which makes this seem like a long, long time ago, but also not. When numbers are that big, it doesn't seem crazy huge between 719 and 1000. But this is March 1998 cover date. And Chuck Dixon writes this issue. He's been writing this series since 664 in 1992, taking over from a Peter Milligan run. And Dixon is simultaneously, as we will get into throughout this show, he's writing Nightwing and Robin and Green Arrow, which we will actually touch on this show. And right about this time that Green Arrow gets canceled, at the end of this year in 1998, he'll launch the Birds of Prey ongoing series. But I don't think we will touch that at all. And through the 90s, we've already been through Nightfall and Contagion Legacy, which is some crap. What do you guys think of the cover for this first issue? We've got this weird Bill Sienkiewicz cover.
Ugly.
It's bad shit. I have to say, I sat down to read this Batman story, and this is the first thing I saw, and I'm already unhappy. What is
Thank
going on
God
with Batman's
Lamar
neck?
draws half the issue.
I won't lie, it kind of makes me think if the Hunchback of Notre Dame became Batman.
Okay, like I see what it was going for, and stylistically, I like the raindrop effect where there's the red streaks, but I don't think trying to make Batman look like a gargoyle was a good idea because he looks disgusting.
Oh. See, I didn't pick up on that. Okay.
I feel like
That doesn't
that's
make
what
it
they
any
were
better.
trying to do, but he made his neck really long and thick, and that's
It's so
uncomfortable.
weird.
How do you feel about the kind of streamlined Batman logo that all the books are kind of share at this point? We're very reminiscent of like the Schumacher movies with that bat symbol being front and center.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think it's all right.
It's even down to the font. It's the same from the Schumacher movies.
Yeah, I didn't know it was different than usual. So
Yeah, I think you had a weird trend in the 90s where a lot of iconic Batman covers are really fucking weird because you had Kelly Jones as a main artist and also doing a lot of covers for books he didn't draw, and through all of Nightfall and a lot of the 90s. And that's a super exaggerated style, and it's kind of strange because you can't really say that about other huge core heroes of the 90s like Spider-Man. I mean, obviously McFarlane, Larson, they're all unique artists and have their individual style, but there aren't many insane Spider-Man or Superman covers from the 90s. But there are tons of Batman covers where it's like, wow, his ears are 3 feet long. So on the interiors, we don't have things quite as crazy.
We have 3 artists on this book.
Yeah, and the credits box lines up exactly what they're doing, which makes sense as far as crediting them. We have Jim Aparo, longtime Batman artist, like literally going back to the 60s, late 60s. Jim Aparo draws the reality segments. Flint Henry draws fantasy segments, which I feel like putting fantasy next to his name in the credits just slightly spoils the story. And Mark Buckingham draws an epilogue sequence. But they're all kind of kept together. They're all inked by Bob McLeod, who Mike and I saw this past weekend.
The hardest traveling man in comics, Bob McLeod. Shows up at every show. At least every show we've gone to, he's been at. I feel.
All the big ones, at least. So we have some crooks being taken to Blackgate, and one of them, named Morg, claims to have beaten Batman to death. And we get a reference to the Brinks job, which was an actual real-life bank robbery in Boston in 1950. And in 1950, they stole $2.75 million, which is $29 million in 2019. So that's a big job.
That's a lot of money.
They go into the bank with some kind of G.I. Joe Liefeldian gear. They execute everything perfectly until Batman shows up. And this is a point, and I'll let Mike talk about this if he wants to. You want to touch on Batman's costume of this era?
Yeah, so this is the Troika costume, which is basically, to simplify terms, this is the costume he gets after Nightfall, after Bruce comes back, like after Prodigal, after Dick Grayson takes over for 12 issues, because Bruce is still not fully ready yet. Basically, the suit is essentially the 1989 Keaton suit, where it's all black, the trunks are gone, and it's basically black on black with the big yellow oval and the big yellow belt. Which I think it's fine, but it is weird seeing Jim Aparo draw this costume, as I'm so used to seeing him draw the standard like Neil Adams 1970s costume, blue on black. I'm not sorry, blue on gray.
Wait, doesn't he have trunks? Wearing trunks?
The point of the Troika costume is he's not supposed to have trunks, but people still draw like at least the outline of them being there.
But it's interesting because the fantasy sequences use the classic blue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do want to state, though, I think, at least for me, as I've grown a fondness for Aparo, I think to me, Aparo is the best Batman artist of all time. I'd put him at the top of my list just for like longevity. And if I look at a Jim Aparo Batman, I go, "Yep, that's instantly Batman with no problems with it."
yeah, signature at least. So Morgue fights back, but in reality, Robin, who at this point is Tim Drake, just kicks his ass and then he passes out. And the boat ride ends, and Morgue just gets freaked out by a fucking bat flying by. And then we get introduced to Dr. Jolene Relazzo, is a seismologist measuring some stuff. She calls in an emergency, and she has no idea that she's actually calling the Bat Cave. And that's basically it.
Well, the phone rings to the Batclave with no answer, as something ominous and bad is about to happen.
Yeah.
Earthquake of biblical proportions.
So the issue really, it's really the only part that matters to us is the epilogue, which is like 4 pages max. But it's the comedy and setting up kind of Batman's reputation of intercutting the tough guy story that Morgue is telling to his fellow crooks and the reality of just getting the shit kicked out of him. You guys can agree or disagree. I think the Flint Henry art, which is the fantasy sequences, it's just really ugly to me.
I don't like it either.
I don't like it at all. The closest I come to liking it is the full page splash when Batman first appears, and he looks absolutely hideous. But it's followed by a second full page, which is reality, I suppose, in which like Aparo's Batman is kind of gorgeous. I really love it, and that juxtaposition is really cool. And I think in that moment, it kind of makes the ugly art almost worth it, but it's just not good to look at, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I will say it's odd seeing Aparo's art. This has to be early digital coloring at this point, just because there's just something off about looking at Aparo's art here for me. It's either the scan transfer of this, like it's like this, it's oddly smooth, like that. There's not as much definition to it that normally you get.
The fantasy like reality that he's weaving, the art in that really reminds me of the Garbage Pail Kids. If y'all ever
Oh, that's
saw those,
exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I hated that also. So here we go.
We already talked about Aparo bunch. The art by Buckingham, it doesn't wow me, but I think that it's pretty great art in the back there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. I have to wonder if what is her name? What's her name?
Jolene Relazzo.
Is she ever gonna come back?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Does anyone have any other comments on the story, the art?
I'd say the story itself is nothing special. I've seen this story done before, where you have the cocky crook who talks about taking down Batman, and then it shows that he's just kind of a chump, and then gets scared. So this is a very, very basic story that's basically just getting us to where we need to be, and more or less, actually, I'd probably say more. It's just filler, honestly.
Because, like we said before, the only part that really matters is the epilogue with Jolie, Mr. Lazo.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't one of the claimed animated series episodes about a crook who claims to have killed Batman?
Yeah, the man who killed Batman.
Yeah, and that has to be before this. This is 98.
But like even a lot of the animated series stuff, like Dini and Tim and Burnett have even said that like they used a lot of the bases off of the Steve Englehart run and
Yeah.
the Dennis O'Neil run. So like they're probably I can definitely see them riffing on stories already that have come before that. So this is really just a placeholder story to get us where we need to be.
Yep. Now I want to jump into the letters page a little bit because I found a few interesting tidbits. In the letters page is a debate about whether Batman should age and give up the cowl and pass it on, which is obviously a debate that continues, and really with all major superheroes, whether they should age. And we also have Dennis O'Neil explaining that up until this issue, there has been a moratorium on crossovers for 20 months within the Batman line. And his mandate was that every story ends in the title it began in, no story is longer than 3 issues, and Batman fans get at least one standalone story done in 1 issue every single month. And so every month you're going to have a Batman Detective, Shadow of the Bat, and Legends of the Dark Knight. I don't know if he might not be counting Legends of the Dark Knight because it's not fully modern set and tied in with the others yet.
Yeah, that was more of the
Yeah, but across all those, you'll get at least one done in one. And so I think when you have a multiple title franchise like that, if you can manage it in a world without crossovers, it's a pretty interesting mandate to have. But Cataclysm is upon us now. Moratorium is over, and it's going to be running through Detective, Batman, Shadow of the Bat, Nightwing, Robin, Catwoman, and Azrael. So we don't see
It's
Legends
really
of the Dark Knight.
interesting. What's interesting is that so the Batman titles are being connected now, but before that, all the Superman titles for a good long while, even before this, are still in the Triangle era where everything feeds through everything there, while Batman's more broken up.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a ton of crossovers in the Batman franchise in the 90s, but you also do have sustained periods where you have a run with 2 creators on 1 title. Like you have Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan and Doug Monk and Kelly Jones and stuff like that. And with stuff like No Man's Land breaking it up. So that's basically Sound and Fury, Detective Comics 719, first episode of No Man's Land. Anyone have any final comments or forever be silent?
Mike, how do you think this comic compares to the Meg?
Compares to the Meg. Well, the Meg takes like 2 hours to watch. This takes about 10 minutes to read. And I have Jim Aparo Batman. So I'm gonna take this over the Meg.
Ooh.
That's a stance, I'd say.
You got to be in the mood for the Meg.
I don't think anyone's ever in the mood for the Meg.
I'm always in the mood for
Correct.
that.
No one is.
Oh, okay.
Learn your place, Timon.
I'm sorry, but the Meg was comedy gold.
Okay, let's end the podcast here.
I don't.
I need to reassess some friendships.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you for coming
Is Vince still? Is it?
And-
Vince just gone?
That's
and
it.
watching our podcast.
What a
Come
song.
back next
Sorry.
time for episode 2.
It'll be just as good as this.
It's gonna happen right after this one.
Okay. Is Faust just gone? What's happening here?
He's still there.
He's still there,
Just
and
end it.
we're still live.
You can see him smiling in his box.